Welcome to Out of Home Insider. Today's a very special event. We've got three incredible folks from the out of home industry who are going to share tips, tricks, and insider insights on what it takes to truly be successful. We're going to talk about wins, we're going to talk about losses, and we're going to talk about how you can apply the same lessons that we've all learned here to your business today to make the rest of 2020 super successful and then launch a 2021 that is even more successful than this year. I'll introduce the guests here today. We've got Dayana Sanders from Carver Ties. We've got Max Goldfield from New Tradition. We've got Doug Cordova from Rapify. Everybody, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
I'm excited to jump right in, but to give folks an idea of who you are, we'll just go right down the line. Give us a little introduction about yourself, and we'll just roll right into it. Dayana, tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from.
Hey everyone, Dayana Sanders, Director of Sales with Carver Ties, based out of Texas. Really happy to be on here and got into the out-of-home industry a little over a year ago, and it's been fantastic ever since. So, and for those who are curious how to pronounce my name, quick hack for you: day on a beach, day on a lake, wherever you're from. That's the best way to remember it.
Boom. We're all looking forward to a day on a beach. Max, tell us about yourself.
Hey guys, so I'm a senior sales director at Tradition Media. We're based out of New York City, in Soho specifically. We sell large spectaculars, the best of the best, larger than life, super premium, out of home. So I'm very excited to be here. Being in the industry for over a decade. Looking forward to this.
Awesome. And my co-host for today, you've met him before, Doug Cordova. Doug, thanks for being back.
Thanks for having me again, Tim. Doug Cordova, VP of Business Development at Rapify, coming from Queens, New York, and we're headquartered out of San Diego, and just looking forward to this panel today.
Awesome. Well, Doug, I'm going to kick it off with you because you brought this idea to the show. I love the concept. Thought it was a great opportunity to give some folks in the industry a platform to share a little bit about, what we all have in common, and that's that we all win and we all lose. Talk to me about, the idea that, how did this come as an idea to you, and why did you think it'd be so valuable?
I think because we see one-offs all the time about all these wins, all these happy things. And, because a lot of that's on social media, whether it be on LinkedIn or anecdotal stories, you get like a tidbit. You don't really get any back end or front end. And you're kind of trying to figure out what happened and what transpired and how that can relate to you. And so I was thinking, if I was watching a podcast or listening to a podcast, I'd want to understand, what people really went through from the beginning, middle to the end, and how that journey worked, and obviously in a condensed fashion. And then from the losses, I think that's even more relevant because obviously everything we see on social media is good. No one really posts the bad. So to understand, how we bounce back, or that also is so relatable because so much of us go through the same thing all the time, no matter what level we're on, no matter what type of company or industry we're selling in. And I thought it'd be fun just to get, the three personalities on to talk about what we do, what we've had success happen to us, and what we've had some failures in.
Absolutely. So you know what? Rather than start with the fluffy stuff, the wins are the easy thing to talk about. Dayana, tell me about a loss. Tell me about a setback, whether it's COVID, something else in your career. What's a loss that's really stood out as a lesson for you in your career?
Yeah, so I'll definitely give an example of kind of like a personal fail, if you will. So, we had like a new rollout that we were launching. I had somebody specific in mind that I wanted to take it to, send it over to them, ton of excitement. And so you get on the call and we're all passionate about what we do, right? We all love what we're doing. So there's just this contagious excitement and there's a buildup and yeah, we'll do this and that and that and this and there. Here we go, rapid fire, hang up the call. And then kind of take assessment of like what I just did. And I had this feeling that like, did I overpromise on something I wouldn't be able to deliver on? So then you kind of get into a cycle of trying to shove things through. It gets messy. You're asking other people to like put you higher and top priority. And at the end of the day, that is kind of what happened is I had to go back on my word and say, hey, I got emotional in it. Passion's one thing, but when you get emotional and you overpromise on things that you, at the end of the day, can't deliver on, that not only hurts you and your reputation, but also the industry as a whole, because that's, that's the perception is reality thing. That's the impression that you're giving people. So I think it's always important, to always stay passionate, but make sure you check your emotions throughout the sales process. And if anything, what we want to do is under promise and over deliver and have people think, wow, this is great. Wasn't expecting all of this. But when we over promise and get emotional in that sales cycle, which is, very easy, and all of us have fallen victim to at some point or the other, that can really be detrimental in more than just that one isolated event.
Absolutely. And I think that is one of the pitfalls of, being in sales, is sometimes controlling those emotions. And maybe if we haven't had a win recently, or we know that it would be a great fit for a client, how did they respond when you went back and said, hey, I screwed up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like just, feelings of frustration. I think at the end of the day, you've always got to tell them, like, I really value the business, value the partnership and the opportunity to work with you. And, here's what I'm going to do to make that up. But that's never a conversation you want to have. And those tough conversations, we all have to have, and we've got to take ownership and accept those facts. But I think, as long as you stand up and say, hey, I made a mistake, and, take on some of that responsibility, and just prove to them throughout, the rest of the partnership you have that you really do value them. Some things are salvageable.
Definitely. Max, how do you feel about taking ownership in those times that maybe something got screwed up? It maybe wasn't your fault. Maybe it was. What do you think about that self-accountability and ownership?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we all have to do. It's a part of any sales job, I think. I've certainly been in that position, and it's one of those where once when you're in the thick of it, and what you have to do, it's just a matter of kind of laying everything out, compartmentalizing it. Just understanding how you have to get your point across. But I mean, it's something that you just have to do. So, whether you call it pulling the Band-Aid or, whatever the case may be, you have to get out there, you have to get ahead of it, and you have to own it. And then you have to figure out solutions on how to get past it, and ultimately have the client feel good about the overall situation. So always have to find a solution in the end, to so that it's a win-win.
I think that's an important concept to really wrap our heads around, is compartmentalization. The emotion is one piece. Maybe there's something that's salvageable. Maybe a piece went completely right, and really understanding that, hey, the whole thing's not messed up. A piece got messed up, or maybe the whole thing is messed up. And how do I remove the pieces so that I can put it all back together? Max, what's that time that you just failed? What's your lost story?
Yeah. So, there's so many to choose from. Now, one that really sticks out in my career, several years ago, after a long day at work, and we work in a very close-knit industry where you forge friendships, right? So like your clients become your friends, and after a long day, I found out that I didn't make a buy. Went to an industry event. So at this industry event, I ended up seeing one of the buyers. So walked up to him, pulled him to the side. We started talking about why didn't I make this buy. It turned out, it turned into a bigger thing. We got a little aggressive at each other. But it's one of those where, my frustration got the best of me, and I wish it hadn't happened. I wish I was able to take a step back and be like, you know what, you'll get the next one. And unfortunately, things haven't been the same with this person. Regardless of whether or not we did speak afterwards, and we hashed it out, and we're all good, but it's not the same. You know what I'm saying? So like where we were friends, it's just not the same anymore. So if I had to do it all over again, I definitely wouldn't have done that, number one, at the happy hour, because that's not the place, for a business conversation like that. But number two, I just, I would have gone about it a completely different way. So I definitely learned, sorry about that. Definitely learned my lesson on that one. And, I truly believe like every loss, every disappointment, every failure is an opportunity to learn and grow and get better. So, that's one where it truly sticks out, and I feel like I've gotten better from that situation.
For sure. And out of home is such a unique industry, at least in, my limited time in it, because you forge friendships with people and there's so many moving things and there's emotion tied to this. We have families that we need to provide for. Doug, what do you think about that fine line between friendships and professional relationships?
It's timely. I think it's very difficult. I think you spend a lot of time with people in the industry. Max, I'm similar. I'm 11 years in. I spend a lot of time with people, whether it be happy hours, whether it be traveling at the Geopath conventions or whatever the case may be. You see the same people, same faces all the time, and you get to know them. You get their phone numbers, you text with them, you go to lunches with them, dinners with them, happy hours with them. But everyone has a role. Like buyers, they have to buy for their clients. They have to do what's right. We have to sell our product and get that across as well. And sometimes those lines cross. Sometimes you have to go around a friend because it's more important to get the buy done. Sometimes you have to just accept the fact that even though they are friendly with you and they tell you they love your product and everything, that this just didn't make sense at this time. And I think a true friendship is going to be able to sustain that understanding that you can't always work together and it's not always going to be a good fit. So building that true friendship is great because, again, we spend more time with people we work with than our family sometimes. But you have to understand that and you have to draw that line.
Definitely. And that kind of segues into my lost story. And then, Doug, I'd love to hear yours. I was about a year and a half into my agency career and had a big client. They made up probably a third of my billing and was friendly with everybody on the client side, from the ownership of the company down to the salespeople working there. And they called me in one day and said, this was a week before Easter, 2 weeks before my son's birthday. Tim, we're going a different direction. We're going to be changing agencies. And that, I mean, just an incredible setback to lose a third of your billing like that. And it was humbling because I'd lost clients at that point, but I hadn't lost that big of a client. I hadn't lost, so much of my business that I'm trying to do the math on how am I going to rebuild this and get back to the same level that I'm at. It's a long sales cycle, right? What we do, it takes a lot of time and opening doors and all that stuff. So how am I going to get back there? And I handled it. I handled it like a professional would, and ended up getting a job offer from the client on the back end of that. Maybe that doesn't happen if I handle it differently, but it was a huge setback financially that actually parlayed into a great opportunity and ultimately led me into the out-of-home industry. So I'm forever grateful for that loss. Doug, what's a time that you lost?
So Mike Tyson has a famous line, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. So I came into this position at Rapify back in November and spent a lot of time, obviously, being in the industry, having, clientele and contacts, reaching out, teaching them, what we're doing now, what we're doing here, what we're focusing on, building momentum, because it takes time. You're starting with a clean slate. No matter who you know, no matter how long you've known them, when you move companies, it's clean slate. It's clean building all over again. And that takes time. So you're building. We got a big win, and there was a lot of momentum going into that, and then COVID hit. And then my whole funnel, my whole pipeline, everything that I just spent 4 months, like blood, sweat, and tears, long days, a ton of traveling, being away from my family, was just wiped out. And listen, I've had losses before. I've had clients I knew were going to close, and then it didn't for some reason. You rebound. It happens. This was just building everything up to something and then having it wiped out again and not being able to do my typical rebound processes, which is get back on the road, get back in front of people, get back to meetings. That all changed. So not only did I, get punched in the face, and I didn't really have an idea how to get back up. And so I really kind of sat back and I talked to people that I had confided in throughout my career, people that I respect in the industry. And they're like, listen, get your face out there, whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be Zoom, book those meetings again, start having those conversations. Where value lies, how you can help, and just start, slowly picking up. And it has, definitely not to the extent it was, but that was a hit I've never taken in my career, whether it be in the industry I'm in now, which has been 11 years, or whether it be, the 7-8 years before that when I was doing something else. And so that was by far the most difficult, hit I've ever taken.
So I think that if we can summarize the loss idea it's here's four folks, and there's millions of more sellers of all different types of things just like us that have all suffered incredible setbacks, professional relationships fractured, personal friendships fractured, losses financially. But there's one thing that everybody here has in common, and that's that we just kept running towards the gunfire. We just stayed in the fight. And how important it is to just hear, it's my Dory line that I always come back to just keep swimming. When those things get taken away, your fallback plans get taken away, activity, whatever that is, as long as we're moving forward, so valuable. Deanna.
Yeah.
Let's bring the mood up a little bit. We've been talking a lot about losses. Talk to me about a win.
So the example I'll give, and it does end up a win, but it's got a lot of like tricky things that kind of went into play. Max and Doug talked earlier, sometimes things are just like out of your control that go wrong through the sales process. But to give you a backstory, it was a home service client, 24 karat gold prospect. So, took a while to get in with them. Then you've got to go through the whole sales process and meeting with them. So long story short, we got to the point where, all right, they were going to give us a trial campaign, right? So we were an element to a greater marketing initiative that they were launching, but we got a launch with them. So they're giving us a shot here. We've got to make everything roll out great. We've got to knock it out of the park. We've got to make this a huge success, because if we do, huge potential. So we, get the contract signed, we get the date set, and the date's really important, again, to the overall marketing strategy that they're launching. So we start going through production, through launch, and this is where everything that goes wrong could, before we even have things going right. So a huge snowstorm comes through. The market we were doing was in the Northeast. Wrap shops are closed, shipping's delayed, we can't get drivers, no installations happening, right? And so this is all behind the curtain, and the client doesn't know what's going on. But we've got a date that's very critical and very important that is looming, and it's looking like we're not going to be able to hit that. And I think Max said earlier, it's so important sometimes just to get out in front of things, right? So you've got two different aspects. You can be reactive or you can be proactive. And reactive is crossing your fingers, hoping for the best. But if things don't happen, you've got to call that client up and you're the bad guy, right? Or you be reactive and you have that tough conversation and say, hey, there are elements out of our control. There are things we could have done better, but this is the situation. And so you pick up that phone and you fully expect them to pull the contract because we're not able to be in line. And, this is where I think being proactive and being transparent really will help you, because at the end of the day, it ended up saving this whole thing. So, by picking up that phone, I earned their respect. They were, they appreciated the fact that I was transparent and I got ahead of things, and we were able to shift and just adjust things so that at the end of the day, it could all work out. Long story short, great campaign. They ended up extending with us, but that was a really pivotal moment and a key learning lesson for me, as well as for anybody, that when it's tricky to do that. You've got like a gut feeling, you feel icky. You don't want to be that bad guy. You want to wish for the best, but you've got to just get out ahead of things. Because when we use that word partner, which so many of us in the industry use, but if we don't follow it up with our actions, then we're just setting ourselves up for long-term failure.
Absolutely. And I think that the word partner is a good word. Sometimes it gets watered down a little bit because it's a little bit buzzwordy, but partnership means that it's a being in a relationship. It's, having a significant other, and hey, we're going to talk about something that's going to make you uncomfortable, but we're going to be better for it. Mm-hmm. And that trust is so important, especially when we're talking about a business-to-business relationship, lots and lots of money, and ultimately your client's success contingent on you doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great story and a lesson that, really we can all apply of lean into it. If it's uncomfortable, it's probably something that needs to get done. Max,
yeah, it's like a good, here, I'll say one more thing. A good quote or, I don't know, mantra, if you will, that I've always taken to heart through business is, your client's success is your success. You're not going to grow long-term unless your clients grow. You're not going to be successful unless they're successful. In this industry, your reputation's so much. It is like a small industry. We know everybody, we interact. And so that's so critically important, that you always want to put their success and don't treat them like a commodity. Really do treat them like a partner.
Amen. Amen. There's real people that are, contingent on you doing the right thing. There are people whose livelihoods are impacted by you doing the right thing. On the client side, they have employees who need to provide for their for their families. And if you don't take that level of ownership, then you could be impacting a lot of people along the way. Zig Ziglar, RIP Zig, the man himself, he said, you can have everything in life that you want if you just help enough people get what they want. Max, what's a win for you?
Yeah, so I think big wins go deeper than just a big contract. For me, big wins within a contract are ones that I think make a difference. Whether it's socially, whatever the case may be. So just making a difference in some way. Most recently during this pandemic, and this is kind of a two-part win. Most recently during the pandemic, I was RFP'd, and right off the bat, I knew.
Max, just real quick, for any seller that's outside of out of home who's listening to that, what does that mean?
It's a request for proposal. So my agency partner, they'll send us a request, and it'll have the target markets, the demographics they're looking to reach, whether it's digital, whether it's static, it just has all the components to what the client is looking for. So essentially, once you receive that, then you go through your inventory avails, and you try and figure out what you have available, what makes most sense, and what would make most sense within this plan. So I was RFP'd, and after reading this RFP, I knew right off the bat that without a follow-up phone call and really selling this through, there's not a chance. Like it just your inventory fits perfectly what you have to offer. Whether it's out of home or any other industry, you'll know right off the bat, oh, this is perfect. Right off the bat, just based on what they were asking for, I didn't know if it was perfect simply based on budget. So this is one where I had to follow it up. I made a call, I set up a meeting, and really sold it through. Really talked about the benefits of the plan that I was putting forth. So ultimately, my contact at the agency got back to me and he said, this is, the client's really liking this. This would not have happened had we not set up that call with the client. So that's number one, amazing there. But number two, this is in the thick of the pandemic. So my company really needed this, every company needs sales right now. For me to go not really above and beyond, that's really sales 101. You follow up, you sell it through. But this is one where, sometimes it just doesn't happen. Sometimes, there's such a quick turnaround and you don't have that opportunity to sell it through. So I'm really just, very thankful and glad that I was able to do that. Number one, for my company, because we really needed that. But number two, the message. So when we talk about making a difference, the message is what really gets me excited about this program that we're running. So it's on the largest digital in the country, and that's the centerpiece within the overall plan that we're talking about. But the message is help us feed California. One case equals $1 donation. And it helps feed, it's benefiting the World Central Kitchen. So as far as selling it through, great. I made a sale, but it helped my company and it also is feeding people. And that's ultimately what makes me feel good about this and what makes it a big win for me.
I think that's definitely, that's a great win and good on you, right? Because it's the uncomfortable work. It's, what Diana just shared about, leaning in and really going someplace that most folks may not be comfortable going. You had a higher purpose for doing that in serving the community, but also in serving your team and the company. And I think that that's a great lesson for all of us. Doug, how about you?
So I'm not going to count the TikTok video that got over 300,000 views. No, I'll put that out as my major win. But no, one thing I think as salespeople, no matter what level we're on, no matter where we are, is proving our worth, right? Proving our value. You could have a salesperson that brings in a ton of revenue, but had that revenue come in? Is that reactive revenue? Is that proactive revenue? So I've always taken upon myself to be that proactive person. It's why I got into business development in the first place. It's what I like doing. Is it harder? Yes. Is it longer? Yes. Do you make as much money all the time? No. But several years back, I was working at a major company. I happened to be promoted 3 months into my role. And one of my major roles in that company was to get revenue from clients who weren't spending with us. For those of you who are not familiar, with at-home structure as a whole, most of the times the revenue comes from the at-home agencies. So a lot of times you have these client conversations, but then the client reaches back to the agency, and as Max said, the RFP, and that's how the revenue comes in. So my goal was to reach out to these clients who we weren't getting any revenue from. And one specific instance, we had the client come in, we pitched to them our capabilities, and they said to us, we actually just ran a New York campaign. You weren't even on the RFP, which means my company wasn't even an option for that client to buy. Okay, oh good. Well, let's not let that happen the next time. So I keep in contact with this client, and they're coming up to their major year big event. And I get a call from the client, and they said, hey, I'm looking at the RFP. You're still not on it. So meaning the agency still didn't put my company on the RFP. She said, I'm going to fix this. Calls back the agency, and I worked closely with the rep at the company who handled the agency, and I said, listen, just a heads up, this is going to happen. And they're like, not a problem. We got to do what's best for our company. So the agency's like, okay, we'll put them on. The client then calls back again a week later, says, hey, there's not enough of this company on the RFP. Long story short, we got the majority of the buy, and from a situation where we were never on the plan to begin with. So I was able to then show to my CEO at the time, hey, look, we were not even on the plan. There was no existing of us even being there. So if it wasn't for this meeting, if it wasn't for this reach out, if it wasn't for having an opportunity to present our capabilities, what we do and why we should be utilized, we wouldn't have been bought, and we wouldn't even have known we wouldn't have been bought. So, proving your worth is never fun. You want to think that people believe in you no matter what, but it's something we have to do. And it's something we shoulder as a daily. And, I was already a director of business development at that point, but still, and as a VP of business development, I did the same thing. Proving your worth, making sure that your company understands the work you're putting in and how that drives results. And so that was a pretty impactful win because it was early in my new role, and it really was able to show, the confidence I had in myself and the confidence I had in what I was doing.
I think it's a great point about I think that the theme of this entire conversation is really doing that uncomfortable work, and we could just sit back and let status quo be the status quo. But the reason that we're in the roles that we're in is to do that. There's a reason that top performers are consistently top performers. They're able to be authentic. They're able to do the uncomfortable work. And then they know if I've done everything right, I can surrender the outcome. And I'm going to win more days than I'm going to lose. And if I can count those small wins and if I can learn from the losses, then I can continue to grow. Yeah. This is a segment that's been a part of the show, but I'd be curious to hear each of your answers here. Dion, where do you go for meditation, inspiration, education? Are you a podcaster? Do you read books? Where do you go to better yourself?
Yeah, so I'll say I really wasn't a podcast person / aren't a podcast person except for you. I think you've ever since I found a podcast, really loved it. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. Shameless plug there. But what I've been doing, we've been doing like monthly book clubs since the pandemic started, and that's ranged from everything from power positive thinking to right now we're in the middle of the Purple Cow. And so, you had mentioned Zig Ziglar, and I'm sitting here looking at Secrets of Closing the Sale right here on my desk. So reading is something I'd kind of like gotten away from, but, it's just, I've had the time to do it and I've gone back to it and I realize, just how great it is. It kind of hits a lot of the things. It's relaxing. You're learning through it. So it kind of hits a lot of those sort of therapeutic checkpoints that we might all be needing right now during these times.
Absolutely. Empowered Positive Thinking, great book. I know Ray Lewis is a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of it. Purple Cow, Seth Godin, all the good stuff. Max, how about you?
I mean, my happy place right now is doing work at my house. Honestly, I'm getting a lot of stuff done. For the most part, I'm doing it by myself. Whether it's landscaping, putting up a fence, just I'm finishing my basement. Like a lot of this stuff, I'm just doing by myself, putting down pavers, and it's my kind of alone time away from the craziness. Because being at home all the time. It's definitely been different, with the family and everyone being around us all the time, as opposed to being at the office. So, I like to get away and kind of do my meditation, doing some work, construction work.
No, it's super productive. And again, for anybody listening to this that's outside of the industry, and of course for anybody inside of it, there's these very, very common themes, right? We're able to measure the wins, we're able to measure the losses. We learn from both, and we're constantly self-improving. The activity doesn't stop. We're not resting on our laurels. We're not resting on that win. We're not defeated by the loss. Doug, how about you? Podcast guy, books? Where do you go?
So was podcast when I was commuting to the city, but kind of pulled off a little since. I read Ego is the Enemy, which was really good. I read the F Yourself series, which is really good. So I do read, but actually I gain a lot by doing for others, as corny as that sounds, and I apologize, but I mentor a couple of people who are younger, who are trying to, get their footing, get their ground in. I love to connect people. So I spend, a portion of every week reaching out to people and putting them in contact with the right people to help them further their careers. And that's not just in advertising. I've done that in real estate. I've done that in finance, wherever I can help and connect people. And that's kind of cathartic to me. Because if I know that I put someone in contact with someone else that's going to help their career, it does a lot for me, and that's kind of my zen and my happy place, if you can call it that. So that would be mine.
Well, absolutely. And Doug, unbeknownst to you, this episode is going to come out tomorrow, inspired by yourself, with Pay It Forward Friday. So as you've gotten to this point in the episode, we recorded this just yesterday. And so this is part of the Pay It Forward Friday, as inspired by Doug Cordova. Doug is someone who just endlessly pours into others. So, Doug, thanks for helping me out with this, man. And anything you want to add before we go?
No, I just want to add, if you have an opportunity to help someone, do it. You'd be surprised how good it's going to make you feel. And that's about it.
Amen. Amen. Well, on that, make sure to click subscribe down there in the corner. And, of course, if you want to get swagged up, visit ohswag.com. Don't forget to use promo code INSIDER for 10% off your first order. And we'll see you guys next time.